Alright guys, how's it going? It is Thursday and it's 9:45, so you know what that means. It's time for another Live at 9:45 hosted by me, Adam VanOrd of VanOrd Customs. Here to have a conversation with another person, Mr. James Knight, who is incredibly influential in our scale community and doing great things. So before I get this thing fired up and running, I do have several housekeeping things that I need to do this evening. So I'll do my standard ones first and go from there. Yes, my colors are loud, Ryan. I'm going for vibrant tonight. I'm in a good mood. So anyway, let's focus on what's going on here. So first and foremost, let me talk about the social media stuff. If you don't already follow me on social media, please begin following me on social media. I have Facebook at VanOrd Customs. There's the Instagram, VanOrd_Customs. And then lastly, there is the YouTube channel where I upload all these videos and hopefully in the very near future, some other great content. So, additionally, when it comes to the show, one of the things that I want to talk about specifically is that this show is meant to have a PG type of audience and reach anybody in our community, from young to old, from new to veteran. And so I would really appreciate it, guys, if in the comments you keep things PG, but I love to see the comments going. And by all means, go ahead and have a great conversation as the show goes on. I'll also try and engage you a little bit and ask questions. And if you have any questions for James as the show goes on, please state them and I'll try and intermix them into what I have going on for him as well. All right. So before we do anything else, I have two really big announcements. The first one is a tremendous thank you, and this one comes very first because this one has absolutely nothing to do with me and everything to do with the kids that I work with. So our school, our high school, changed things and we had the opportunity to run an RC club. And I decided, okay, well, clubs are now a big thing. I'm going to do an RC club, and I said, okay, I'll head that up, and I'm gonna get like 5 or 6 kids. We'll use the stuff that I have, and it won't be a big deal. The first day I had like 18 kids sign up that were interested, and so I freaked out a little bit. I contacted some people in our community, and then boom, like one of the very first people I contacted was Ryan Cormesser, because as you all know, he is very tied in with Crawlers for Kids, and RC Addict does a lot with Crawlers for Kids. And I said, Ryan, is there any way you can like put this stuff before the board real quick, like this request? I need to come up with some trucks to run this club and support these kids. And Ryan stepped up to the plate and he donated 12 ready to run Red Cat crawlers. There will be a bunch of posts about it and stuff, but I just want to put that out there that he just very like boom, within 24 hours, here it is. Get them to the kids, run them, and so on and so forth. Today was the first day that we took them out of the boxes. We ran them. The kids had a blast. You guys will hear a lot more about that as I learn more about what I can and cannot share on social media. That's why I haven't like media blasted it everywhere. The second part is something that caught me completely off guard yesterday as I went down to pick up all of those trucks for this club that I'm running. Completely unbeknownst to me, someone behind the scenes by the name of Jason Page, who tunes in all the time. He's probably watching right now. I didn't see his name, but I'm fairly certain he probably is. Like organized this thing behind the scenes where I had apparently must have talked to him about I did the dumb thing. I bought a camera and did all the research on the camera, none of the research on the computer. And so I did this big push to get off of my phone for video editing, and as a result, my computer couldn't cut the stuff. So he organized this group of people that I had no idea about, and they like hit me with a donated computer that one specific person donated who wishes to be left out of the naming, and then additionally a bunch of other members of the community donated things as well. So I will be using that to hopefully build the YouTube stuff and donate some of that cash as well back to the RC crawler stuff for the kids that is going on, and so on and so forth. So over the past 24 hours I was blessed with all these things, and so I made this cryptic post about the community is so wonderful. The kindness is out there, and it's incredible. And so, those of you who donated, you know who you are, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm not going to read off of the list. I will be more than happy to make a public thank you, but I'm going to reserve the whole. If you don't want your name in there, by all means, just contact me and say, hey, please don't put my name in there. You robbed a hobby store. I did not rob a hobby store, although it might sound like it. I just fell into the right place at the right time, guys. And so I'm thankful, and I'm going to continue pumping positive things out into this hobby for all of you and what goes on there. All right, now let's move on to what we're actually here for and start talking with Mr. James Knight of Knight Customs. I saw him come in. Let me get him pulled up into what's going on and fire up this interview. Uh-oh. It says I can't add him right now. James, if you are watching, for some reason it says I cannot add you. That's weird. That's not happened in a long time. Of course it would work that way this evening. Bear with me, guys, as I try to rectify some technical issues we've got going on. It's like right back to when we first started all this. So reading some comments. Oh, perfect. James is asking to be in the video, and I will. All right. There we go. We should be perfect. How's it going, man?
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, and as always, my volume is wrong. But no, thanks for joining me tonight. I can't wait to interview. Sorry for spewing all of that out there at the beginning, but I can't sit on that info any longer. I just wanted it out there. So, all right. So let's start this off with, for anybody out there who doesn't know anything about you or know you, how about tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have going on?
Sure. James Knight. I guess everyone knows me as the guy behind Knight Customs, hence the name. Don't always get that, but that's what I do. I run Knight Customs in my spare time, and by day I'm a toy developer working for a large corporation, and yeah, I guess that's it. Famous for my 3D printed parts, I guess, but I go way. Some people might know me as Toy Kid from Tamiya Club, because I've been, you can probably see behind me, a big sort of almost lifelong RC collector.
Yeah. So the other night when we did our test, you're like, should I face the camera toward the shelf with all the RC cars, or should I face the camera this way? And I went, the shelf, and please show us some. So we'll get there in a minute.
Sure.
For all those people out there who are super, like, I already saw, like, show and tell is going to be awesome tonight. So how long have you been in the hobby?
I had my kids do the math the other night. 36 years.
Man, so you've been in the hobby longer than I've been alive. So
yeah, give them my age a little bit there, yeah. But if people are friends with me on Facebook, they kind of saw my birthday cake from this month, so I had the numbers right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 9 when I first got the bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. What or who got you in? What started at age 9?
A similar story to Matthew Catt, who you interviewed a while back. I think I had a neighbor, and I just moved into my parents just moved into a new house, and my neighbor came around. He was 1 year older than me, and he had this Tamiya catalog.
Yeah.
And it's the one, they had the models in it, and they used to do these, I think they still do it, this beautiful, had the models kits in it, and it also had the RC kits in it. And as a kid of the 70s and 80s, I was building model kits anyway.
Right.
And then like, wow, these are amazing model kits, and wait a minute, these are RC. And what was super cool was those magazines not just had like these beautiful pictures of the finished RC models, which, you know, if anyone knows the original Tamiya stuff, were like scale models. They also had these like running shots of them, like the dust coming up and the suspension going and then flying through the air with the sand.
That's awesome.
I mean, those are burnt in my memory. So that was like, it was a combination of seeing that and then going to the hobby. Like back then it was like Taylor and McKenna I grew up in the UK. I should have maybe given you a bit more when I told yourself about when you asked me to tell everyone about myself. local hobby store, toy store downstairs, hobby shop upstairs, and they had all the kits out and the models built. And I think at that point it was me staring in the windows and seeing those Tamiya videos,
Right.
just like my pet. Mine were a little earlier models than his, but that's what I used to do every Saturday for as long as my parents would let me. I would just stare in the window, and I think I had 2 years of those, me asking for those models, like one of those models on my wish list before my parents could actually like figure out / afford how to get me
Yeah.
get first hobby RC. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's a great way to get into the hobby, and I hope that it's still capturing kids just like that and their imaginations and drawing them right in, because that's amazing. What was your absolute first hobby grade RC? So you talked about like that you got it and what got you there, but what was it?
So I'll build up to it because people just sometimes jump in. But so I'm looking at these catalogs, and the one that jumped out first was the Toyota Hilux, the red Toyota Hilux with the switching gears.
Yeah.
And they had the video transmission, the real leaf springs, and I think that was the first one I asked for. And apparently, according to my mum, my dad went to the hobby shop to see how much it cost. And remember, I'm like 9, right?
Yeah.
And the average like Christmas present was maybe £30. And apparently my dad talked to the guy in the hobby shop and was like, there is no way. I think maybe it was like £350 for one of those back in the day. And so like the first Christmas was like, no, that's going to be way too much. And then I went back to the catalog, and then it was like Wild Willie, right? Like the Willie's M38 Jeep with the big wheels that pop the wheelies.
Yeah.
So back like, this one's cheaper, Dad. What about this one? And apparently I think he went back again, and the next Christmas, I think I got a black and white color television. Didn't get it. And then I think it's like, what was it? I don't know what the year is at this point, 84, 85. The Grasshopper just came out. And I was like, Dad, what about this one? This one's like the cheapest one they do, right? And that Christmas, I got a Tamiya Grasshopper. That was my first hobby RC. But my parents, you know, we weren't poor, we weren't rich.
Right.
And these things were still in the UK like really expensive. I just got the kit and the battery, no RC gear. And my dad was like, look, your birthday's in September. This can be like a project. If you can build the kit, when you've built the kit, then we'll buy you the radio gear, right? And then literally like 48 hours later, I'd finished it. And I remember like Dad not helping me pull the tires over.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was a young kid. I didn't have the hand strength to pull the tire over the wheel, and, you know, and him not helping me, and me thinking like that was really odd because he was just trying to drag it out, right? And I think like so I built the kit super quick. Obviously, my parents weren't able to get me the RC gear straight, but I figured out I could put the battery in a mechanical speed controller. You could just turn it, and it would go in a straight line, right? With tow in, and it was like a giant, very expensive battery-powered car. And I did that for a few days. And then I think somewhere between, not quite my birthday, but my mum and dad, they got me the radio gear.
Yeah.
And I put the gear in. And back then it was a 6-volt battery that took like 24 hours to slow charge. And I put it in my grandma's house, and she had a gravel drive in the front. And I went out there with my car, and I drove it for, I think, 6 minutes just doing wheel spins on the gravel.
Yeah.
Had a little 80 engine, and I came back in, and she was like, is that it? I was like, yep. Put it back on charge, and I waited for the next day. So the Tamiya Grass, like a lot of people of my age, that car was like my first RC car, super basic, but it had the scale details with the driver, working. For me, it was just like working suspension and the fact you could drive it.
Yeah.
Had a transmitter. Yeah, and then that was like maybe, I think I was like 9, 10 when I got that. And then I pretty much, from that point on, RC was always there. Like I got into skateboarding big time as a teenager.
Yeah.
But I always would be the guy race. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a week ago, I saw you posting like a bunch of old like skateboard mag covers and articles from inside with your name and all that stuff. I was like, man, that's awesome. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like me reliving my glory days. No, I had a good group of kids when we were, you know, it was a small scene in the UK, so you didn't have to be that good to get into a magazine. Get in. So I have those. They're near and dear. It's like to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole time though, I was like weird because you know people get into skateboarding for different reasons. For me, it was just a really good, creative, athletic, artistic outlet, and I love many things. But I was always then like sneaking off on a Saturday to go race RC cars at the local club or whatever. So I was a little bit of a oddball like that, but
Yeah.
you know, stayed with me.
All right. Um, okay, so I'm gonna pose this question to not only you, but all those people out there watching as well. If you weren't in the RC hobby, what would your hobby of choice be?
You know, that's kind of like RC would have never had to be invented, right? Like I think um, it feels like, you know, again, Matthew Kett, like we're good buddies, and I think we have a lot of same life things, but like things like train sets and models, that kind of things that look real, but they're right. You kind of have them in front of you.
Yeah.
Like I love that stuff, and so yeah, I mean, skateboarding has always been with me. I don't know if it's really a hobby because it's more of a like I sort of tell people skateboarding. I won't get into that, but skate as much now. Every 5 years, I joke. My brother still skates every day.
Yeah.
He's into but every 5 years we'll skate together. But I still like follow all the skateboarders. I think there's something about it that I kind of that was probably my second passion.
Yeah.
Quite a hobby, but yeah, pro skateboarding.
Yeah. So I did BMX, and so I still loosely follow all of that. Like I'll dive back into it. I raced,
Yeah.
but I follow all the freestyle guys. On the watching side, racing's boring, but in the doing it, it was awesome. So.
You know, it's funny because I'm saying, yeah, probably skateboarding, but on my wall here, I've got some vintage. They're re-released. They're not vintage because I spend enough money as it is on my stuff. But I have the re-released skateboards from the 80s on my wall because they're just artwork.
Yep.
From that period, and the memories is awesome. So, yeah, it would have been that. And, yeah, BMX, and that's a tough one, though, right? The bikes are bigger.
Yeah.
You can't just mount on the wall.
No, you're not. You're not just gonna keep those on the wall. Like you got to have some space if you're gonna keep them. And I don't even own a BMX bike right now. I own like a road bike, and then I own a single speed road bike that's super fun. It's super old, like just converted. Like you can hop on it and just have a good time. You don't have to worry about it. It's just a good time. So
nice. I got friends that they're into BMXs like we're probably into RC cars, and I see them. They have a collection of bikes. They rebuild the vintage bikes piece by piece. They hunt down those parts and stuff. It's the same. It's just a different vibe. Same habit.
There's probably like a treasure trove of that stuff at my parents' garage in the attic.
That's cool.
All right. So, are you a big tire guy or a small tire guy?
You know, I am definitely a small tire guy, and they seem to be getting smaller, right? So I think for me, I've always liked the smaller tire, even when they're a little bit bigger, just because of the scale. I'm always trying to go probably first and foremost scale looks,
Yeah,
and then balance that with some performance. And now like the companies like Pitbull and especially like recently Proline have brought out like much smaller tires.
Yeah,
I really like because they're good compounds. There's good inner foams now, so I think you can really get to things that not like stock showroom stuff, but a little bit more like modified four-wheel drive with a slightly bigger tire, but not crazy big. And I think like others have said, it gives you more of a challenge. It's a little fun. It's also kind of a good excuse. Like if you can't make a line, it's like, yeah, I've got small tires. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. My trucks tip over a lot, and I always blame it on my truck looking so scale. It's really not a great driver, but it kind of makes it more fun, right? It makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. When they're difficult to drive, I think they're more fun to drive. Honestly. So.
Yeah.
All right. I have to ask: are you a brushed guy or brushless? Where's that?
Yeah, it's I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of brushless because when I first started playing with RC cars, brushed was, and when I got as a teenager, kind of, tried to be a good racer, just at a club level, and brushed was so hard to like keep going and high perform and changing the brushes and maintaining them every race, and then when brushless came out and you could like run as fast, almost as fast with minimal maintenance and plug and go, and I could start to smoke guys like on the back straight running nitro with the new back thing. So from a buggy standpoint, a race standpoint, that was a huge, I think, jump in RC for the hobby, us getting into brushless.
Yeah.
And now with all the great companies like Tkin, bringing out like really good brushless that have great control. So now you get that kind of low maintenance, better run times, and you get that real slow, crawl control, which you couldn't get until recently. I think I'm slowly moving to like brushless everything, where maybe a year ago I would have said brushless for fast stuff and brushed for slow stuff.
Right.
Now it's harder than ever to make that argument, unless of course you're on a budget, which I totally get. But I think that's actually a cool thing about scaling is that you can get an RTR rig with a brush setup that gives you great slow control without having to spend $100-$200.
Right.
And then it's just nice if you have that money, you can step up to brushless and get some runtime benefits. But it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna ask you this question, but I'm also posing it to everybody else because I always like these answers. What do you like most about the RC hobby in general?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's been such a lifelong passion because it changes, and you really can make it whatever you want, right? I've got cars I've built to run and never run because they're like emotional objects that I always wanted as a kid, that I wanted to build that can run, but don't really want to run them, so they just sit on the shelf, and it's more of a scale model collecting thing.
Right.
And then I will run every time and run them as soon as I built them, and they're more they link me to going out with the guys locally here and running and being part of a community. So there's like that social aspect. There's the fact that I can do it with my son and it gets us out, and it's like a father and son thing. So there's just so many aspects to it. And as a teenager, that racing part where I really wanted to master something and be good at it and be able to directly measure that, like I'm entering a race, am I going to win?
Right.
So it's just so more. And then you can't see it, but I have like a helicopter over here. You can I've tried not to get into helicopters, but I still have one or two.
Yeah.
Boats, cars, planes, there's just it's just like a giant black hole of cool stuff you can fall into.
That's absolutely true, and it just grows all the time. So since I started the whole like venture into the RC world, like it has grown exponentially over the last little bit here, and man, it's super cool to see what comes out next. Like it's just exploding.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have some Night Customs questions, and then I have a bunch of people who are like, come on, I want to see the trucks. Like, let's see the stuff. So let's ask some Night Customs questions, and then let's look at some trucks. So what prompted you to start the whole Night Customs thing? Where'd that come from?
So, yeah, I think some people heard this before, so forgive me, but hopefully this is new for some people. Yeah. So I don't know what, like around 2000, year 2000, man, that sounds like a sci-fi movie or something. I discovered like the internet things, and like that I could collect Tamiya stuff, right? And all those models I used to get, they were now like I could go on eBay and I could buy stuff. And so I started to get pretty deep into like the first 100 models from Tamiya. Things like the Sand Scorcher, the Hilux I mentioned, Wild Willie. Like I could now finally start to build that stuff, and you could build it like to a runner or whatever. And as a lot of us in the community got to a point where we'd got the models we wanted, and now we were like, well, I've got a Sand Scorcher, and I built like a box art one, now I want to build another one, but I want to kind of customize it. And we were all starting to, there was people like Moosey on Tamiya Club that was like just this crazy. He would take a sand scorcher, and you'd only ever really seen it as the one Tamiya made, and he would make like these kind of more contemporary, super cool Baja VWs. So we all started to do that, right? Inspired by that, we do our own. I was working for Mattel in the Hot Wheels team, and there were a couple of us that was like into it, and we were really starting to like push each other. And one of the things was like with the sand scorcher was adding the scale engine, and so what people were doing was buying the Revel 1/8 kit,
Yeah.
which was like a $8 kit, and then you were like cutting that, just taking the engine out of it, and then you were cutting it up and trying to fit it around the sand scorcher gearbox, and then trying to and it was all very like, you know, traditional kit bash stuff, right? And styrene modeling, and I was very comfortable with that. But then I kind of realized, oh, wait a minute, this is like, I'm like $150 plus like weeks of my time trying to get this thing in there. And I'm like, oh, I got like 5 sand scorchers. I got to do this like 5 more times. And even if I bought the resin copy, I was like, man, this is getting super expensive. And it just occurred to me that like, well, wait a minute, you know, I know how to CAD model, make, you know, things in 3D. I had access to 3D printers because of work, and I could just go make one in CAD and print it. And so I was like, well, I could do that. And then it was about the same time that Shapeways was making it possible, like, for us to get access to these amazing 3D printers. So I sort of realized that maybe I could print one for myself at work, but I couldn't print them at work and sell them. Like,
right.
I'd get fired. That's not cool, right?
Right.
So I was like, Shapeways, I could get these great prints from Shapeways and offer them to other people. And at that point, I was like, well, I could do that. And then, hey, I could do all this other RC stuff that I've always had ideas for. And so I kind of said, well, okay, well, I'm going to start Night Customs as my Shapeways page. And sort of, you know, I've got all this sort of experience as a professional product developer, and I've worked with some amazing marketing people. So I kind of understood branding and marketing. So I'm just going to, you know, just try and see if I can make Night Customs like a thing. And it just started with like, I'll just try to see if I can sell 1 or 2 engines.
Yeah.
And then we did like some drivers. And then I was like, well, I want to do the Myers Manx, which is it's in right behind me, that red car there.
I see.
Which Tamiya did, but didn't really do properly. And I was like, I want to do a scale one of that. And I thought I could try and 3D print the whole thing. And that was when I realized, well, I could do this forever. Like I've had 30 plus years of ideas already. I'm just going to just keep going. And so, I mean, that was 5 years ago, literally like this month, just gone.
Yeah.
It's just grown over there. So the real inspiration was just seeing that I could finally make things, and it was easy for me to share them through companies like Shapeways. And I've just sort of continued just to grow it and just see where it goes, to be honest with you.
Awesome. That's great, man. So what is your favorite part of doing the whole Night Customs thing, running the Night Customs business aspect of what goes on?
Yeah. So, you know, I think, so if this is kind of, I just wrestle with this a little bit. I honestly think the best fun I have, it's fun in a lot of aspects, but I think what the bit that's the most fun is, you know, I'll make something in CAD. We'll spend a lot of time looking at it. And it's when you get that kind of first print where it's like in your hands, and for the first time it's 3D.
Right.
Like nothing that beats that, because you may have spent a couple of hours or like a couple of months trying to get this thing, and it doesn't matter either way. And when it's there, there's no better feeling than that. And that's selfishly for me, but I also do enjoy when I meet people and they're like, I got that thing, and then they've gone and done something with it that is way beyond, you know, what I even imagined. I've seen people take my parts and put them in crazy builds in ways they weren't designed for.
Right.
And so it kind of is a good feeling to think that it's more, I get some great satisfaction, but it also brings a lot of other people a lot of satisfaction too, which is cool.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
let's flip that question and go the opposite of that. What is the least
Yeah.
favorite part of running all the night custom stuff?
I mean, I think, I'm a fan of Brian Amida, and I saw his interview last week, and I think
Yeah.
he said paperwork, right? That definitely sucks. I'm with Brian. But I think sometimes it's hard to, um, I think a lot of people look at what I do and they have questions about why is it so expensive, um, you know, and maybe even they understand why things are so expensive, and it's not their budget. They don't have the money to be able to get stuff, and that's the tough part. I think is that either not being able to explain to people, it's not me just making gajillions dollars on these things.
Right.
Isn't what it is. Anyone who owns a business, runs a business, knows it's way more complicated than that, and never as profitable as people think.
Right.
And then the thing is that we haven't yet been able to get to a thing where I feel like anyone who's in the hobby can sort of truly like get a lot of what we make, and we're working really, really hard on that. But that is tough because it feels like I can serve a certain group of people, but I can't serve everyone, and it's frustrating because I think over time, I'm confident we can get there, but that does kind of suck, to be honest with you. I see those emails sometimes, and I'm like, man, I feel like powerless,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes, I follow that. Like it makes sense. That I get that a lot with the backdrop. Like it's an expensive
Right.
to make.
Right.
So I don't sell very many of them. The people that have bought them love them, and that's awesome. And I'm content with that. Like I don't need to make a bunch of money off of it. I just thought it was cool.
And I think that's like that thing that's amazing. Like I'm always like, wait a minute, like I see it from so many angles, and it always looks so good. And I know how much a scale garage costs to build. I have one. I had a good friend sell me his because it's expensive and B takes forever, and solution for that. And I think that's the cool thing of, we're able to, if we have an idea now, anyone in the community can put it together. Now, maybe everyone can't afford it, but that was a really cool thing you did. Just, I guess, inventing that. I don't know if you were the first, but it was the first one I saw. And it's definitely like set the bar for like, if you're going to do this, this is how good it has to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I would love to put more out there. It just doesn't, like, I've got to figure out a cost variable thing because it's genuinely expensive. And I get why they don't just fly off the shelves. Like, it makes sense. So let's flip it back a little bit. And we've talked about all kinds of stuff. I've had lots of comments say, let's see all the trucks behind, like show and tell, like I want to see what's going on. Let's see something there. Like, what do you got kicking around that you want to show us?
Whew, I don't know if I'm jumping. You do such a great job of like giving us questions. I have one right here. It may not be what everyone wants to see, but I was talking about it earlier.
That's okay. It's what you want to show. That's the important part.
Well, I talked about the Wild Willie. She's a little dusty. But what, like this is from like, I don't know, 80, I can't remember. I'm not good with numbers, but 80 something, right? And I think, credit to Tamiya, the scale detail of the Jeep body. And, this is probably one of the big reasons I love Jeeps. And people are like, you always do Jeep stuff. Like, yeah, I love Jeeps. Who doesn't love Jeeps? You can do tons. And so this is a Series 1. And for the Tamiya geeks out there, they'll know that there's a Series 2 that looks almost identical apart from the length of the wishbone and had a different paint job in the catalog. I have one of those too. I think I have 3 or 4 of these. 3. Sold one because you don't need 4. You do need 3.
You need 3, but
one Mark 1.
Got it.
But this is this is new built, new parts. This is no re-release anything. It's kind of, if I could grab one car the thing was on fire, this is one I grabbed. So
yeah,
that's that. But I think, the crowd is probably a bit more contemporary, a bit more
maybe.
right? So You know, I think what. Let me grab one.
Absolutely.
So this one, people are probably sick of seeing this because I've had it forever and I post it all the time. And but there's a good story with this one. Let me move back a little bit. So this is my SCX10.
Yeah.
Right. It's a 2012 JK body. And the story behind this is, so I'm doing like a lot of Tamiya stuff. And I'm like, hey, you know, I need some advice on like how do I grow, and maybe I could get other people to sell my stuff. And I got a meeting with some of the guys at Hobbyco, the now defunct Hobbyco, but I got a great meeting, and I got a lot. And I went out there and I'm like, you know, I'm doing this stuff with Tamiya. You guys sell Tamiya? Would you ever sell stuff like this? And the guy was like, you know, you know, we do sell Tamiya, but you should maybe look at some of the other brands we own, because you know we do more there. And if you had stuff for that, you might do better. And he was like, have you seen the Axel SCX10? And I was like, yeah, I saw the Honcho. That kind of looked cool. And so credit to them, they sent me a used Honcho. I mean, it was hardly used, but they sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I put it, you know, put a battery in it, drove it around, and man, that was like, it was 5 years ago. And so immediately that Honcho was ready to run, became my son's, which we still have. It's done like 4 Axel Fest now, whatever it is. And I got the kit. I got the kit SCX10, which is this one, which is this is pretty much mechanically the stock kit. I put the RC 4-wheel drive K44 metal axles on it with the upgraded ARB diff covers.
Yeah.
It's a full length up front mod. It's got the stock brushed ESC. Axle ESC in it. So it's a really, really stock from an electronic standpoint and not very clever mechanically. It's got a CMS mount, Vanquish CMS mount, but then everything else, you know, it's had like 4 iterations.
Yeah.
So like it's second body, but it's like maybe actually 5th look. Saw Graphics helped me out a ton. They've developed all these cool wraps, and you get that like it's real like 3M vinyl, so you get that matte gray.
Yep.
And that in combination with like a ton of my parts, you know, Smitty built fenders and the grill. And I think like the grill was one of the early parts where it really took like Axel's body and made it more scale by replacing that Lexan just sticker and being able to do a 3D grill with a radiator behind it. And then we put a rip intercooler in it. And so, you know, I call her Tipsy because I joke that I can put her on the rocks and look at her and she falls over because she's just set up to look good. She's got like a king shot. My buddies always have fun because these are awesome tires. The Pitbull, these are the Mad Beasts.
Yeah.
I look great on these Jeeps. You know, they're not Pitbull's best performing tire, but I kind of don't care because they look so good. So I'm spinning dirt a lot when other guys are just ripping up. Again, maybe using Pitbulls or Prolines, but just to give a little love to Pitbull because I do use a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have, you'll ask me later, I know how many RCs I have, but even though I have a ton of some of the latest and greatest stuff, this comes out all the time. Because I love how she looks when she drives. She's fun. And I think I'm, you know, quite sentimentally attached. So I think people have seen a lot of that, but yeah, she's dirty. That's the other cool thing about scale. You can just put them on the shelf, pull them off, put a battery in, go have fun. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Let me go put that.
So people watching, my favorite part about this is he's picking off of shelves that you can't see. So there must be more of them that you're not seeing.
Yeah, I think I've got 30 cars behind me. I got boxes. I love the box art from Tamiya. So some of those are just empty. Some projects I'll get to. What else have I got? I think people have seen that. I mean, that's the problem. I try and post every day on Instagram. So there's maybe only 1 or 2 things in here that no one's ever seen, and I can't show them because they're top secret. But, I think I'm a lifelong Axial fanboy, but Traxxas did such a great job coming to market with the TRX4 platform. I know it's different, but I think that's what's great.
Yep.
You know, it's a whole different way to do it. All the technical aspect. I just love, I think we take it for granted, but the Bronco it's just so beautiful, right? And, you know, we'll talk a little bit about the interior I've created, but doing the new bumpers. And this is one I get all the time. This is 3D printed stainless steel. It's not plastic with a little metal in it. It's not done on a hobby printer. It's a $200,000 industrial printer with a 2-part industrial process. They put it in an industrial kiln and what do they call it? Sinter it at like 1,000 degrees. So these are real metal. You try drilling them. You can drill them, but you know, it's a good grade of steel. And we made them so they just plug straight in.
Yeah.
But you know, it makes the stock look just a little bit more functional. And they've got high clearance at the back, because the back honestly was like a land anchor with the drop. So it's got the hitch, but a lot higher.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a little shout out to RC Forward Drive for their case. I love the vintage case. I'm a sucker for yellow headlamp cover. So RC Forward Drive broke a ton on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. All right, let's do some more questions. We'll come back to some more trucks. We'll talk about more of that stuff. So let's talk a little bit about 3D printing. You kind of covered it, but what got you started in that world? Did the CAD stuff come from like work experience, or did you just kind of always have an affinity for going in that direction?
Yeah, so I'm like, what was I? So in England, you do, when you're a kid, you have a high school, middle school. I lose track, even though I've got kids. It's just, we get to 16 at school, and we can leave school, and like traditionally you might leave school and then, you know, get a job at 16, or you go to like a vocational college and learn a craft, like, you know, be a fitter or turner or welder or whatever.
Okay.
Or you A-levels where you do like 3 subjects, and then those 3 subjects, and then that gets you into university, right? So I was at a very good school, but I was a bit of an oddball, that I was an artist, but not really an artist.
Yeah.
And I was like an engineer, I was good at science, but not really, not a very good student. And I had a great school, but it didn't quite know what to do with me, because it wasn't like I was traditionally going to be in any one of the normal, like traditional, like profession tracks, right?
Right.
But I was at a school where I was expected to go study 3 subjects and then go to university. That was just what everyone in the school did. But they had this one day where you could go to this local, it was more of a vocational college, where, you know, you could study like a diploma, which would be like learn a trade, right?
Yeah.
And so it was an excuse to get a day off school. So I'm like, I'm off school, I'm going to go to this thing. We're going? And I remember it's the funniest thing. So we get to this campus, and they've got like media, and you can learn like some basic editing skills and, you know, some camera work. You know, they had an art studio, and I don't know what tour I ended up in, but we ended up walking into the engineering area. And all I remember is we go into this room, and in this room there's a robot arm, like an industrial robot arm.
Yeah. And
it's got like a gray head on it. And I kid you not, this is like Destiny, right? There was a Tamiya hard body, like the 1/10 scale Lamborghini Countach body, and they were practicing making a program to spray paint it, right? And I'm like, RC stuff, this is cool. And then they had like, you know, giant computer screens, and they're like, yeah, we did this thing called CAD. See this? And they had this architecture like wireframe. It was all black. It was a very early version of AutoCAD. It was AutoCAD 3, and this college was one of the colleges helping AutoCAD develop the program for engineering.
Yeah.
And so they walked through, and they said, you know, you get to build these things in the computer, and we've got robot arms and RC cars. And apparently I went home, and I said to my dad, I got to do this. I can go to this college. I'm going to do this thing. And my dad was like, well, that wasn't what we thought you were going to do, because you're supposed to go do these things. And then, but he could just see that was my thing. Like, whatever it was, they mixed all these things together. So I went to college and studied 2 years of electronic engineering, mechanical engineering. I never actually got to control that robot arm and spray an RC car, but I did a lot of CAD. And I was, you know, by the time I was actually able to go from that vocational college to university with an engineering diploma. And by the time I got to college, I remember the college lecturer that was teaching CAD I actually ended up helping teach the class because I knew more than him. Because
Yep.
the college, I was just very lucky. Had some great teachers, and I just soaked it up. It felt so natural, and so that was over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So that university, I ended up studying industrial product design, which is really a mix of engineering and art, and making not just what a product, how it's made and engineered and functions, but what's its aesthetics, why are we making it, what's it need to be used for, ergonomics.
Yeah.
And so that led me into a career in the toy industry, and CAD's sort of been a developing tool in any product design field. And so I've been at many companies, used many versions of CAD programs, from things that are basically freeware to like corporate seats that used to cost $25,000 a seat, with
Right.
super workstations to do giant boats and stuff. So it was something I always had access to at work, and something I spent a lot of time doing. And then in the last 10 years, with computers being so cheap, and I use Rhino for what I do for Night Customs. Rhino, I find, is something I used a lot professionally. You can get it for like a professional license for I think $1,500, which when you compare it to other stuff, and if you're a student, it's free. And there was like a 30-day trial, and so you can run that on a regular laptop.
Yeah.
So the cost for anyone to have that compared to how it used to be is, and so that's kind of long story, but that's how I got into CAD.
Yeah.
I think a little different.
So I'm not 100% sure everybody else appreciated that story as much as I did, but from being a teacher and the teacher standpoint,
Right.
I like to hear stories of how people like tracked to their future and how they ended up there, and how you didn't necessarily take the traditional career path. So, I mean, that's probably like, it's also unique how they do stuff over there, man. Our way of doing things is much different. And so I'm a big push for like, not necessarily like, if you have a passion and you have a draw, like go to a college, go to a university, go like get a 4-year degree. But if you don't, like go learn something, go learn a skill and do it. And that kind of, it fits in there. Like you did both, but I mean, it fits in there. So.
I'm just going to say, Bob, I saw Bob, SolidWorks and Autodesk are common. Bob, where are you? Because I'm in California now, despite my accent. I didn't say that up front. I've used both of those. Autodesk is what used to be AutoCAD.
Yep.
They're both programs. They're Parasolid programs, and those are whole companies run on SolidWorks from manufacturing to the product development. But I prefer Rhino for the what we call freeform, the sculpturing capabilities. It's a derivative of an old Alias software, so it's really good for automotive stuff where you want to do a body and you want to make surfaces that have compound curves and shapes. This is not so geometric.
Yeah.
You can do that in every program, but Rhino is sort of geared to make that easier than others to make. So I can work quicker in Rhino doing that than others. But I think anyone who's an expert in any software could argue, I can do whatever you do as quick as you do it, and they would be right.
Yeah.
It's my like Rhino.
Absolutely. So, unlike many of the other people inside of like the hobby that 3D print, you elected to go with having Shapeways print your stuff. Why choose Shapeways over like buying up your own printers and going that route? Like
so as I sort of said, Night Customs is a part-time thing for me. I have a very demanding, I'm very fortunate, I have a great day job which pays all my bills and provides a great life for me and my family. So I have a limited amount of time. And so if I look at again, I think Brian talked to this, and people like say, well, it's $2 of plastic, right? But running 3D printers is a job in itself. And like, kudos to people like Brian that do it all. Honestly, kudos, because I know how much work that is. When I go to a day job, we have teams running printers, just running them, just loading them up, taking them out. So what was great about Shapeways was a number of things. One, they were going to do all that for me.
Yep.
Two, I don't know if people realize this, but and not to take anything away from people again like Brian that have, he doesn't just have. He's progressed from just a hobby printer that might be like what most people have access to,
Right.
but gateways have industrial SLS nylon printers, which are $200,000 printers. An SLS nylon is the material I use most, and the reason I use that is it has a good mechanical strength and a good detail. Yes, it's white and dyed black, but it has so many just basic mechanical advantages over, say, a PLA, which can melt, or a resin, which can and shatter, is brittle. I do use those materials. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just depending on the application.
Right.
I think Brian like a nylon fiber carbon, which is great too.
Mm-hmm.
And so Shapeways have those. So I got access to those, which is great. And they're going to do all that stuff. And they have a whole team running that. So I didn't have to worry about it. I could focus all my time on not just the design, but I think people don't realize like just shipping and handling, like just taking stuff to the post office and putting things in boxes and labeling it up. And then, the other thing that Shapeways are great at is you have a problem, like you get one of my parts and it's broken, or we sent you the wrong part, you can ring them up. They have a service team, and within 8 hours, they'll call you back and say, okay, what happened? And nearly 9 times out of 10, I think actually 10 times out of 10, if you have a broken part or a wrong part, they'll just send you a replacement. Yep. Don't even get you to send it back. Now, Shapeways do all that. So in terms of their customer service, I mean, I couldn't do that. So I feel like they've been such a great partner in the ability for me to spend, 100% of my time developing and marketing my product versus the back end operational stuff, which is a lot of work.
Yeah,
it really is. I've seen, I've seen people come and go because they got super excited. They bought themselves a, great FDM printer. And then, they realize, they get into it, like they print up a few things and they're trying to sell the things and people want to buy them. And you spend all your time, like then the printer breaks and then people get mad that you took you a week. And,
yeah,
I've seen the threads where it goes from like super excited, I got my printer, to like, I am so sorry. I'm going to quit this because I'm disappointing too many people. And it sucks. And I don't want to be that guy. And like, kudos to those guys, but that's a hard path, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
So respect. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So I think, what you're seeing right now is there's a few of us that each have a slightly different approach, and we figured it out to work for us.
Yep.
But for me, Shapeways has been the way I've done it for those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as someone who has, like, genuinely, the teaching job is a very highly demanding job as well. Right. And so I do get summertime, which is awesome, that a lot of people don't get, but during the school year, man, it's game on all day. Like there's no thinking about RC. It's like that doesn't even exist. And so that was a big part of how I designed doing any of the stuff I did as well, because it's all that back end stuff takes all the time. And so exactly what you're saying, like the thing that kills you is shipping. And it doesn't sound like it would, but when you work till like right before the post office closes, it's super hard to pull that off, and you really have to plan for it. And if something doesn't line up quite right in your week, man, it can really set you back. So,
and and I think the fact that Shapeways have that backing and that they do that stuff, and anyone can access that is built into that cost. So I think they're not just trying to amortize a $200,000 investment and pay all the employees and everything else that they're doing.
Right.
Is that a big part of why my parts are more expensive than people just says, well, I can print out my printer for $2 worth of plastic. Yeah, you can, but that's different than running a business and running that service. And again, I think people that do run businesses and do service customers understand that cost. So, I will defend Shapeways prices, even though I will tell you that I wish they were cheaper too.
Right.
I really, and we're working on that. So we're working on that.
All right, man. So let's jump in a little different way, and let's say someone's looking to get into the whole 3D printing thing, and they're looking at some software. They're going to play and figure it out. Is there like anything? So you talked about what you use, but is there anything like is there like freeware, like something easy access that people can toy around with and try it out that you're aware of?
Yeah, there's a ton of. I mean, there are a ton of. That's a. I mean, it's never been a bad time to like learn and get into 3D printing and designing. Um, there's a number of free programs out there. Like I said, I use Rhino, and I think they have a 30-day free trial. And if you're studying or can show that you're studying something, you can get a student license. Um,
Yeah.
and
Usually, usually when they do those, they're attached as a teaching license too. So if you teach anything,
right,
you can usually fall under the teaching window for anybody that's a teacher out there.
Right, that's a little plug for people who want to give back and teach something.
Yeah.
But I think things like Tinkercad, there's some programs now where they, a lot of companies are trying to get more people involved in CAD modeling and 3D. So, and I would say that having been sent on over the decades, a number of very expensive CAD training courses, there is no substitute for just sitting down and having an object in your head or an object you're trying to copy and trying to replicate that, and just wrestling with the box until you figure it out. And I think YouTube is a phenomenal resource. Like if whichever software you end up with on whatever platform, you go into YouTube, you type that in and type in tutorials, there'll be 50 guys showing you, you do this, you click here, you do that. And honestly, in all my years, that's always been the best experience. And having friends and buddies that you can sort of call up and say, I'm trying to make X and it won't do it. What's the cheat or the workaround? But it just takes, it's like anything, it just takes time, helps to have a good, facial awareness in the box. But, it just depends what you want to build. Simple extrusions are as easy as drawing, a box and just pulling it out in a direction.
All right, man. So I gotta take one quick pause and address our crowd we have here, and I thank them for all of their support and all the stuff that's going on. However, I do have to announce that Facebook really it freezes when we're in a dual live feed if you hit the like button repeatedly. If you hit it once, that's awesome. If you want to comment away, but it genuinely affects the video quality, and until Facebook fixes that little glitch that they've got going on, it just, I'm not saying that like you can't do the like button thing, but it definitely affects what's going on. So
you can don't like too much.
Yes, you can like this. In fact, afterwards you can go back and hit the like button all you want, but right now it'll affect what's going on.
I saw Ryan ask, "Where's the cat?" I don't have a cat. My wife's called Cat, but there's a couple of famous builders that have cat, but that cat's.
He asked that a lot. That's not an uncommon question. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about one of your latest things that you've got going on. And when we talked in your like quick interview test that we did here, you talked about that you're doing like a free print your own interior that you've got going on. So like let's talk a little bit about that, and why free? Why give it away and say, here, if you have a printer, go for it?
Yeah. So I said before, I recognize the cost of the expensive cost of quality 3D prints, and again, trying to figure out ways to make it cheaper for everyone. So I've really loved, like many do, putting interiors in bodies. It's one of the things that often gets overlooked for a number of reasons. Like, it's not that companies don't know it, but it can be expensive, and for RTRs, it's an easy cost to walk from. There's some great solutions out there, but I've always wanted to do things a little differently. And so, we did, I think the first real interior we did was for the SR5 behind me, the Proline body. And I think, printed in SLS, it's like $180 for the interior. And I know people that don't have $180 to spend on an RTR kit, let alone a couple of seats to put in the cab. So we looked at that and said, okay, well, how can we do it differently? And people always ask me, will you share your parts? Will you give me your part? I promise not to share it. And it's not that I don't trust those people, but I think, the IP of Night Customs is our parts. That's what we own. That's the time and money, and we monetize that by selling those parts. But you know, I think a few months back, I'm like, okay, well, I wonder how many people actually have their own 3D printer out there. Because what people always find funny is that I've been doing this for 5 years and don't own a 3D printer. So I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe I should get a 3D printer and maybe I can figure out ways to print something for people to try and help people.
Yep.
So I got myself about Rep 2. My buddy said it's the toilet of 3D printing. It's super simple, super robust, easy to fix. And then we said, okay, so what if we gave away a part file, but to finish that interior, you have to still buy some Night Customs parts. And that could be a little bit of money or it could be a lot of money, but it would really be a way of me being able to, you know, leverage my design skills, give people an interior of greatly reduced cost, and maybe even, you know, spur a little bit more creative development for other people as well. So I think many of you saw I helped Vanquish develop their interior for the VS4 Origin. Yep. And when we were developing that, trying to think, okay, this is a good basic interior, and then we can dress it up with 3D printed parts to really take to the next level. So that Vanquish bring a product to market a little less cost than it would have been if we did a full interior. I know that's still a very expensive kit, but it's great value, shameless plug. And so I took that learning and said, okay, let's see if we can do that for 3D printed parts. So, you know, we're giving away, we've developed a base interior we've done 2 bodies right now, the C10 and the Bronco. And we give you this part file. You can download it from Shapeways. You can print that out. Now, for some people, that might just be enough. If they just want to bolt that in their truck and not have a steering wheel, they just want seats to put their action figure in, that's totally fine with me, right? Yeah. But my hope is there will be enough people that says, you know what, I will take that part from you. I know someone has a printer. I have a printer. It prints really well on an FDM in this orientation. It's good enough detail on this side, which is the side you see. Yep. This side, a little rougher. And then, you know, we have a range of parts to dress that interior. This is a fully optioned C10 interior, but you know, the basic dash is, I think, is $50. So for $50, really, you can have a basic dash where before a Night Customs dash would have cost you 180, right? And then, you know, like anything, the sky's the limit. You can put different shifters, headrests, seatbelt, steering wheels, the door liners, which some people may want. So it kind of then says, you know, if you really want a fully detailed Night Customs interior, it's still going to be about $120 cheaper than we currently do it. So we know why we gave that part away is that there's no real way to sell a file and protect it. So why bother, right? Give people, if they want to share it to their friend, you know, we encourage, if people have a 3D printer and say, you know, I can print this for people, and they want to charge a little markup for their time, and people want to buy that, we know it's still going to be cheaper than if you went to Shapeways and bought the nylon SLS part. And I encourage that too. I have no problem with people printing this out and selling it, if it means that, you know, people are going to come back to me and say, you know what, I got this thing, my buddy sold it to me for whatever it might be, 20 bucks, and now I'm going to spend a little money on your shifters and steering wheels to finish it up. Right. And I think it's a good balance of, you know, adding detail to your interior, if you're on a budget. Yeah. And maybe even you're not on a budget, because I have a lot of rigs that need interiors. So do I want to spend 180 bucks on every one of them? Probably not. Right. And if it cracks when you roll it over, go print another one. Right. So
and as you get deeper into the hobby and you have more trucks, like everything one needs, the other ones need, it gets exponentially more expensive. So and that's awesome. I like that you're putting it out there. You're getting it out there so that people can access and have the opportunity to get, like, let's talk about like Sorkaways. Like, they're gonna get their points, they're gonna get their stuff lined up, if that's what they're looking for, in a much cheaper method than going the other way. But if they're really looking for that detail, you've got their back too. So that's awesome, man. Yeah.
Thank you. And now I can't claim to sort of have invented this business model. Yeah. You know, I was inspired by DCM Racing, Chris, you've interviewed, and Harley. Oh, yeah. They've done a similar where they've, you know, made their files free to download via Shapeways or Thingiverse. But they'll also sell you the part if you don't have a printer, because for some people, that makes sense to them. So, you know, I think we're all trying to, you know, just contribute, you know, like, how can we add something? And I think it comes from a place of, we want it for ourselves selfishly. And we figured if we want maybe other people want it too, and it seems to be working. So that's what we do.
Right, and I think that that's where a lot of this hobby gets driven from, is that we're all in it for a little bit of self gratification. Like, I'm not gonna lie, talking to all of you guys that I get to interview is like, that's amazing for me. I enjoy every second of this. But to provide that out there afterwards or during to the other people who are watching, like, it's nice because it puts exposure and light on all these people inside of the hobby and what they're doing. And so, like, there's that trade-off. Like, it's good for me, but it's good for everything else that's going on too. And I think a lot of people, a lot of people are trying that win-win mentality. And that's one of the things I like the most about the scale crawling world, is people are in the win-win mentality, where in a lot of other things, a lot of other hobbies that are out there, everybody's trying to take you for a ride and get your money. And that's not always the case in the scale crawling community. It's very supportive and helpful and generous, and those are good traits. So, all right. Which one of your RC trucks is your favorite of all time, and will you please show it off and talk about it? Did we already skip that and go to the green one? Like,
if anyone's just tuning in, old school, Tamiya Wild Willie.
Yeah,
it's my baby. Series 1, OG, new built. Yeah, right. I even have the box, best box ever done. Can't quite see it there, but the artwork was, there's a whole story if you've ever read Mr. Tamiya's biography. He talks about the Japanese artist that helped him create the idea, and some great design philosophy and not just scale modeling. So although that's not what I drive and that's not really the core of what this community is doing, that's still the one.
That's good though. I mean, everybody's got their favorite stuff, and it doesn't have, I mean, the question was for you. It wasn't for everybody else. So I do have to ask though, there's a question that popped up and it says, what toys have you done? So I'm guessing they're saying, like, you've worked for a bunch of toy manufacturers and so on and so forth. Like, is there a notable, like, toy that's out there that you've kind of had your hands in the creation of?
So I've been very lucky, fortunate to work for a number of top toy companies. It's kind of hard. I probably work on, at any one time, the teams I'm working with will maybe do 700 plus toys, which sounds insane, a year. That
sounds absolutely insane to me.
But it's a big team. They're big companies. I've worked for Lego. Did some cool things at Lego. I worked for Matchbox and Hot Wheels at Mattel. It's going to sound like a resume now. I've been fortunate to work with some teams on some pretty cool toys. It's a hard thing to say. I think one of I've been very lucky to work. I wouldn't know where to start. To be honest, I don't want to sound like, oh, I did this and I did that and did whatever. I would say one of the ones that was close to something we talked about earlier was I got to work on Tech Deck.
Okay.
For any of you that have put those scale vintage skateboards in your RC cars, I might have had something to do with that. Because when I got to business, we were all like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we should do vintage skateboards. And luckily everyone else was like, that sounds like a great idea. And so we were very lucky to work with some people that knew how to make that happen. And so we did a lot of the boards I have on the wall. It was kind of, again, selfishly, I got to meet people like Kristen Hossoy and Tony Hawk and some other names that people may not know, and do re-releases of their models of smaller skateboards. And it's kind of cool that they're sort of 1/10 scale. So that was probably one of the things I got to work on that was like really close to kind of a passion. I mean, I love toys in general. I grew up playing Lego. That's where I got all my mechanical stuff. We did some cool stuff there. It's funny, I always try and find a way, like at Lego, we did this little snowboarding Lego minifigure that would go down a slope. I didn't create that. We had this genius inventor guy that figured out how to make a minifigure ride a snowboard down a Lego hill. And he even figured out a way to make a Lego minifigure throw a basketball, which was phenomenal. And it could go in a net. And so I got to work on that toy, but I wasn't the genius there. I was just one of the guys on the team.
Right.
So I've been on the team. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm on a big team. We do a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to throw the tech deck one out there. Skate decks, tech decks, not skate decks. That's probably like a generic ripoff, but tech deck's the original.
All right, man. Well, I'm glad I asked that question. And so, you weren't boring anyone, by the way, of listing all of this stuff we all know. Like, it's cool to hear that you're involved in the things that we know. Like, if you grew up and had toys and all of that, like, you named a lot of stuff and alluded to a lot of stuff that we either grew up playing with or our children are playing with or are popular in American culture. And so that is awesome. And most people probably wouldn't necessarily know that about you if they just knew you as the Night Customs guy who builds the stuff for RC trucks. Like,
right.
So
yeah,
that's awesome. So thank you for sharing. I have to ask, do you compete in any like scale RC competitions or not? And if so, like, what is your favorite one to attend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky to be like in California. I'm in Los Angeles. We have a number of really good crawling groups out here. Shout out to Renegade Rock Runners and LA Crawlers. So there's a number of events that go on just locally. Vasquez Rocks is 35 minutes from my house. Did I lose you?
I'm still here. I'm guessing you probably got a phone call. That's what usually gets me if I have anything go on. So hopefully he'll come back. If not, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to talk about next week. I have on Tom Asher, and if you don't know who Tom Asher is, guys, you're missing out. He's doing all the Three Brothers RC stuff, and that's new. But Tom is like a scale crawling or maybe even a comp crawling genius. Outside the box. When I'm telling you, like, the box is here, Tom is over here somewhere, and he does a tremendous job. So I just lost James. It says help. That's awesome. I'll see what I can do about bringing him back in, and we'll go from there. I am gonna say though that James, you might have to like log out and log back in to our feed, and I'll bring you in. I'm searching for some name, like his name and the stuff. So if you wonder what I'm doing and it looks funky, that's what's going on. So I can't even see comments or anything right now. And so apologize for the, oh, I'd already sent the invite, so there's anything I can do there. Okay. What the heck? All right. So call him back, Adam. I would love to call him back, Bob. So there isn't much. Why did I hang up on James? I didn't hang up on James. There isn't much I can do till he comes back in and hopefully asks to join in. And so I'm just gonna talk for a minute. If you were here at the beginning, you heard some of this. If you weren't here at the beginning, I want to spit it out there again because I'm eternally grateful for two different things that just went on over the course of like the last 24 hours. Well, a little more than 24 hours, 36 hours. One of those things is, ooh, he's back. James, hit to join the stuff that's going on. And perfect. We're coming back in. All right. It's been a while since we've had that go on, guys. If you were with me at the beginning of all this, hey, welcome back.
So sorry, that's me. It's my bad. It was going so well.
No, you're good. So, if you, I don't know if you saw any of the like beginning episodes of Live 945 before I like tried to like kind of perfect Facebook. It was like that every time. I'd lose my guest. I'd lose me. We'd start over. Like, there's been a steep learning curve, and so I'm guessing you probably got a phone call. Is that what happened?
Don't have your alarm set to remind you to have an interview with Adam.
Oh, yes. So
try to turn it off.
That's a new one. I haven't had that one pop up yet. So
add that to the list of, you do such a good job prepping us and getting us connected. Just remind next guy.
Yeah. So don't set any alarms. Turn your phone on to airplane mode, which I didn't tell you and I didn't do. So we were running the risk the whole time. It's all good. We're gonna make it. I promise.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So you were asking me about comp stuff. I was
yeah.
saying that great thing. Someone was asking if I go to Apple Valley. Yeah, I'll be at the Recon G6 12-hour enduro. So that's one I actually. That's probably the only competition I enter. I wouldn't say it's scale in that, but I think Brian Parker and team do a good job trying to say this is a scale enduro event, and I think people push that to as much performance as possible. But I really embrace the. I think people laugh sometimes. I turn up with a rig full of stuff, and we all sort of. You got 12 hours. How much of that stuff's going to come off? And
Right.
sometimes it doesn't. But that's probably the only one I compete in, but only really because the event's sort of set up to like the competition is, can you last 12 hours is like part one, and part two is how far can you go? And people like Jake Wright, and we had Christian from Austria come in last year, and those guys do, they're athletes, right? They train, they run. I mean, I just turn up and just walk for 12 hours and hope I can get around without my knees going. But that's a great event. You can do a 3 hour, you can do a 6 hour, and I always say, look, if you sign up for 6, sign up for 12. Like if you, it's like if you can do 6, you can do 12. It's like catching a wrench, right? It's like dodging a ball, whatever the next stand. But that's the one I do, and then of course Axel Fest. Huge fan of Axel Fest. Again, I think in the early days we had more of a, recon style where you were like checking and adding points, and there were, adventurous winners and stuff, and they do have, still competitive events there. And I always say to people, if you've never been to Axel Fest, you need to go, right? And especially now with the new ownership, it was great this year. Horizon were there, and they announced that they're going to keep it going. But with the departure of John Schultz going, to associate, shout out John, I know you're here. It will change and evolve, and make sure you catch it before it evolves too much and you don't know what people are talking about, because it wasn't like it used to be. I believe it'll still be great. There's so many of us that really and I think the event organizers will say this, they did a ton of work, but if it wasn't for the like 2,000 plus people turning up with the right mindset, it wouldn't be what it is. And that really is, it's just, again, not to undo, I know John's watching, he's gonna say something. There's a ton of work that goes into that event. There really is. And I know all the events are, but man, the people that are there are very, very cool. We set up a Jurassic Park scale trail this year. John Schultz challenged all the trail sponsors to like add a bunch of scale to the trail to make it more fun for people to go through, because people had been doing that, and I think those were always my favorite trails, CKRC and other brands. And so I really wanted to kind of like do a good job. Didn't want to let John down. Didn't want to Axel down. We did the Jurassic Park theme. We had a couple of different things. Hopefully everyone's seen that. And the whole time I'm like, this is going to get stolen, crushed, broken. I'm like, how long is it going to last? It's a 4-day event. And I tell you, like Sunday morning, it was all still there. And I was like, it was all like phone calls. It would have taken one person not paying attention to step on it, and it would have crushed like an egg box. And like, a huge thanks and kudos to everyone who, they really looked after it. I was really quite amazed. No dinosaurs were stolen. The whole thing was great. So that's really, again, not very competitive, but that's kind of what I love is people go there. My son races the rock racing event. And for him, he's at that age now where he wants to go fast. Yeah. Max will do a good job of like, making that so it's fun and kids get to be competitive and try and win. And I think that's good character building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. I have to ask. And so for a lot of people, this is the hardest question. And for you, I was like, dude, I have like the busiest week ever. I'm not sure I'm going to get you the questions. You started like popping answers at me. You sent this one right to me. I was like, so what's your favorite truck or build out there that's floating around the internet that is not your own?
Yeah. Maybe just because I recently reposted it, but I mean, man, there's some epic. I know everyone really struggles with this, and I think the hardest part of answering this question is that you know, whoever you say, there's like 10 other guys that did awesome builds, and they're like, what about my? Um, I think, and Matthew Kett last year for K&K Tough Truck Challenge took I was developing the SR5 parts,
Yeah.
And he reached out and said he was building SR5, and it was really great. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to send you some prototype stuff, and you tell me what you think, give me some honest feedback, and he did. So he has a lot of prototype stuff on that rig, but that rig came out like when I said earlier about someone who took my parts and made it like way better than I ever thought it could be.
Right.
That was definitely one. That was definitely one of them, right? He's an amazing builder, but there are so many. You know, Danny in Australia, the guy does all those super crazy animated driver stuff. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna butcher his last name. Hunan? Sorry, Danny.
I'm not 100% sure. And so I sent him a message. He's like, I got to get my English better before I come on. Like, I'd be willing to be on, but I got to work on some English. So.
But if I was to say from a creative standpoint, like raw creativity, that guy, like he's doing something right now, which is like a walk-in track thing that eats stuff. Like he has got like a mind like no other for RC creative, innovative builds. And then, you know, drivers, the shifting, like the double declutching and accelerate. Like, dude, come on, man, give us a chance. Like, I think, I mean, I've seen people do like steering drivers, but and I know like the drift guys do a lot. Like the drift guys, I get a lot of inspiration from those builds. And you see, I think both in Japan, and we got a great club down in I'm going to butcher their the Super G Drift Club down in South. I think it's Orange County actually. Those guys are epic, and I think there's a lot of crossovers because it's scale, has performance, but it's not like crazy speed, so they can things out with the engine bays and stuff like that. So that was a long answer, but Danny and Matt.
Gotcha. Perfect. So I got to see the SR5 last year at East Coast Scale Challenge, and I mean that's right. Like after a summer of driving it and beating on it, and so both of them, both his and Noob's were awesome. They both did a tremendous job. So let's talk about who are some of your scale influences, or your influences in the scale crawling segment of the hobby. And if you were going to pick someone to be on my show, who would you pick and why?
So this, so I would say someone who to me has been really influential for the hobby is Rodney Wills. And people like Rodney who? Like, I think if you've seen the T-shirt where it says Rodney said it's okay, you know, I kind of knew Rodney's influence before I knew Rodney, and I got to meet him while he was working at Axial, and you know, heard some of the stories, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're at HPI and you were working on that thing I thought was like freaking amazing, like man. And I think Rodney's kind of a behind the scenes guy. You know, he had the role of head of marketing for Axial. He really helped. He's brought a lot to what we do. And I think people don't really realize, you know, the crossover with the one-to-one world. You know, a lot of this has been done through Axial, and I think people, you know, give Axial a lot of credit for that. You know, Jeff Jones and the team there, they're all great people. But Rodney has had this sort of creative touch, not just at Axial, HPI, where, you know, he really understands kind of subcultures, where they're at, where they need to go, how they need to get there. And I don't know a lot of people see that. I see it. I'm really appreciative of it. I think it totally sucks that he left the RC industry to go do race cars. I know he loves race cars, and I love Rodney, and I told him as much. I'd love to see him come back to the RC industry, because I feel like scale especially, we're still in this very early age where you still see people don't even know what it is, and then they find out, they bring themselves and their family, and the whole thing is so much fun. And I think it's an aspect of RC that like no other. You know, everything else, hobbies can be multifaceted, but there's very few where you can go camping with the family and everyone gets something out of it, and you can literally all play with RCs in a weekend without you know, having to practice and do stuff. You know, as a kid, I took my dad always took me to the RC races, but one time he wanted to try it. And, you know, after like bouncing off the barriers halfway around the track, he was having no fun and the car broke. You know, the process to learning to race is you got to dedicate, commit, and practice, and then keep it there. You can't walk away, come back, you lose your coordination, you lose your timing. Trust me, I know. And so, you know, it's just a big shout out to Rodney, everything he's done. I hope we see him again. I think, you know, he's done so much for us. So not the normal, I know, but when I go to events like Axle Fest and see how much fun we all have and know that, you know, he was a central part of helping shape that. Again, not to take anything away from people like Brian Parker and Jeff's commitment from Axial and people like John and all the other great people there that make that really like hold that event up and make it big. But, you know, just giving him put him on the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. That's a great response. I do have to ask though, are you more about forums or social media?
Man, when I first found forums, it was like, wow, I can talk to people like me. They're all over the place. So I think, you know, they just deserve so much credit for what they're able to do in like building these like global communities around interest groups, right?
Right.
Definitely today, I think it was definitely a point where I'm on forums a lot where I'm like, this needs an update, right? And I think people have talked about the frustration of uploading and all that kind of stuff. But even the UI, right? Like seeing threads in text versus when you're on Facebook and Instagram, you see the images.
Right.
And 1,000 words, right? So, I mean, I don't go on forums as much, but I like support like Scale Builders Guild as much as I can because I think what they do is still a great resource, still really a great resource. It's like, it's a good place to go find stuff, document stuff. You know, if I have something where I'm like, I really want to like document this so people can go back to, I'll put it up on Scale Builders Guild. And a lot of our builds where we did, you know, like with the sand rails and the desert patrol, where it's like, this is how you have to build it out. We've done long 14-page threads, and I'll always still loop people back to there. Things like painting tutorials for our engines, how to paint 3D printed parts. We have those on Scale Builders Guild. And so, you know, I think we might see a renaissance as people get smarter with those platforms and say, how do we make it more visual like Facebook and like Instagram so it's easier to navigate? That's my hope for forums, but they're not there yet. And then, you know, I think Instagram, you know, we post on daily. I think I love Instagram because it's, you know, I go back to like talked about those original Tamiya catalogs. It's just a bunch of really cool pictures. Like Instagram's king of that, right? It's king.
Right.
Don't even need to see the comments. You don't get caught up in the he said, she said, blah, blah, blah.
Which, I don't even read them on Instagram anymore.
Right.
I straight scroll through pictures and I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And you double tap on Facebook. You got to find that thing. And I'm always double tapping on Facebook. And I'm like, dope. So, you know, I kind of rank. They all have something to give. They all have something to add, though. You can interact with people on Facebook. And that's good and bad, as we know.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, sarcasm doesn't come across when you write.
Yes, you have to be really careful with that. Been caught there before.
Yeah. And if someone puts a smiley face, that normally means they're joking. It's just so hard, right? You see it all the time. I have good friends that are good dudes, and I see them get caught up in that stuff. And I know both of them, and now, you know, luckily they end up calling each other and actually sorting it out because when they can hear each other's voice.
Yeah.
But I think we all know about the pitfalls of Facebook. So
absolutely. And so I'm just gonna interject. Like, I saw this post this week about so it was someone posting something from a builder who has moved on in their life and is no longer doing things, and the amount of posts of people who were negative about it because they didn't know what it was. And so, like, okay, so it was there was a post, someone's trying to sell a Metal Masher body, and if you don't know who Metal Masher is, you don't know Blake's work, like, it looks like just a beat up body, but if you really know Blake and you know the love and the effort and like the true amount of detail that went in. Like there were people who knew and were like talking about like this might be too much or it might not be, like whatever. And there were people who were like, I'll give you $2 for that. It's junk. Like I feel bad for all of those people who have missed so much from not experiencing the world of the forums. And I never go on anymore. I wish I went more, but man alive, that post just made me feel so bad, because there's so many people missing out on all that good stuff.
Yeah. And look, I think that's where like Matthew Kett, to give both Matthew and Richard a shout out, because the joint owners of Scale Builders Guild kind of really understand that. And I think, you know, if you don't follow them on Facebook and Instagram, they do a good job of saying, here's this. If you want to find out more, go check it out on the forum, right?
Yeah,
and that link. And so kudos to them, because they could have just walked from forums, right? They could have just said, you know what, that's too much hassle. You still have to moderate it. You're still paying to run those things, right? And it's still time and money. We're all busy. So yeah, and you know, we'll you know, those guys will figure it out at some point. They'll figure it out. I'm sure people on the thread try to correct them.
Well, yes, you know. and that's what happened. And like I wasn't putting in like a negative twist to any of it.
No.
I'm not mad about it. It just I felt bad. Like
Yeah.
how I wish that I could just be like, please go here and like see what's there. Like I feel like Facebook misses that aspect, and you don't realize it until you see something like that. It's awesome because it's fast and easy, but it's bad for that at the same time.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move on to the next question. What advice do you give people who are just starting out? Box stock rig, going out to have some fun, plug the battery in, and...
Yeah, I mean, have fun driving it, right? Like, I think we all see this a lot. Like, I just bought a thing. What should I do first? And it's just totally natural, right? I just had some friends of my son and his dad. You know, they wanted to get into crawling, and they bought their rigs. And my buddy Ray, the dad, is like, "Okay, dude, what do I do? What do I do?" It's the first thing I did. And I think, you know, I think that this advice has been said a number of times: is just go and drive the rig, have fun with it. You know, I think for me, I think when I built that first SCX 10, it was kind of funny. I didn't do that. I actually spent like probably a month, maybe 2 months, like just detailing it, painting it, designing a grill for it. Like tires didn't get dirty. It was pretty well scaled out for the first time I took it out. And again, you know, I think it was a bunch of great guys, Vasquez Rocks, found them on Facebook, went out there. And it was really cool actually to, like as much fun as I had building it on the desk and getting it to look like I wanted, when it really got interesting was I'm crawling with guys on the rocks and I'm seeing how their rigs are working, and I'm asking them like, how did your rig get up that? And mine's just falling over, right? Like you just learn and everyone's so good about helping. Like Don Hughes, the Don father, huge help out. You know, I think the first 2 or 3 times I hung out with him, he just tells me everything. Like you should do this, don't do that, put this here. And it's all great advice to make your rig run better. And then you can decide like, okay, well, some guys are going for the crazy comp lines and they just want it all performance and they're not worried about the scale because this thing's going to roll off 20 rocks and destroy itself. I'm not that guy. I'm going to go around, take a few pictures, post them on Instagram. I'll see you on the other side of the rock. And I crawl with a bunch of guys that all do that. And, you know, you can do that in an RTR. You know, I think we all know the first thing is probably going to go if you get an RTR is the servo. Doesn't matter whose brand you buy. Everyone tries to do a good job there, but to hit those magic price points to make them affordable, the servos are the weak point. Now, I've had RTRs that have run for years with stock servos in, because those old plastic links, they flex and they work like servo savers. And if you're not crazy, but, you know, I think so, you're probably going to find that. And I think, you know, this is true in many ways. Like, as you break stuff, figure out how you're going to upgrade it. And that's a good way to go, because then you're not, you know, you're using the part until it breaks and you can junk it because it's now junk.
Right.
Put some better in. And, you know, kudos to. We're seeing so many, Traxxas, Axial, HPI, Vanquish, the Terra. They all have, they've all taken a slightly different point of view on like what they're bringing to market, and they all have great value. And I don't think you go wrong with any one of those, depending on your budget and expectation.
Right. And I would agree with that full-heartedly. So I have to shift to a new question.
Yep.
And so this is always a touchy subject. So I always leave it to the end. And so I have to ask, do you currently sponsor any team drivers? And if you do, what are you looking for as a sponsor?
Why is that a touchy question? Do people
there are so many people that are pro and con sponsored drivers in rock crawling. And I don't I am pro sponsored drivers if the sponsored driver actually believes in what they're doing for the company. I'm pro that.
I can see what you're saying, because I've seen a lot of your interviews, and I think, and I can understand why people are saying, I just don't want to be sponsored.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't, and those people know that, it's wise, right? If you're sponsored by somebody, that you need to take that as a responsibility, as a job, that you're going to promote whatever that company is doing, and going to promote RC. Because I think what I'll tell you is what everyone I know who sponsors drivers will say is, we're looking for like not just advocates of our brand, but advocates of the hobby.
Right.
And we're all looking for positive role models. I think there's a lot of discussion around racing because it's so performance based. You hear these comments of like, should that company really be backing that person's behavior? But I think in scale, what I've seen is every company, because it's much more, there's less of that performance variable that has to put companies, I think, in very difficult positions sometimes, is that, we're looking for people that are that contribute to the community, are advocates for the hobby, are positive, are understand what promotion means and can do it, right? So I get a lot of requests for like, can I be a team driver? Will you sponsor me? Can I get some free parts? And I'm always looking. If I get that, I'll very quickly look at the person, and I can see very quickly, well, if they shown already a prior ability to promote anything at all. And I know people get excited, but my plan is to promote. With your help, I'm going to be a really good promoter. And I'm like, it's the other way around. You're going to have to put a lot of equity sweat and probably buy a lot of stuff yourself to prove you can promote before people will start giving you stuff for free, right? Yeah. Because all well intended, it's easy to say genuinely I'm going to be a good promoter, but it's actually really hard to do. So I think a credit to do it, because you have to do it consistently. You can't just do it this week and then disappear for 6 months because life got in front, and then come back and be like, I'm back, because I think that whole time you're being supported by somebody in a number of different ways. Yep. And there's a responsibilities and expectations. So we do sponsor a few people. And that came, really, it's more relationships, and you probably had before. I didn't do a Night Customs is sponsoring people, please send in your resume. But I do think that if that's something you want to be, and I think people like Tim Smith have done great podcasts on this, if you want to put yourself out there, you need to build a resume, like show a history of how you promote stuff and how you're active in the community. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're building amazing things. It's like, here's me contributing, here's me giving good advice, here's me posting on a regular basis, here's me commenting on other people's stuff on a regular basis, right? So, but to give a little shout out to the people I'm lucky enough to work with. So Matthew K is one. Yeah. And really, I've known him since days of being on Scale Builders Guild, and know what he brings to the table. And we just naturally work together anyway. So we just formalized it. And I said, can I call you a team driver and tell people that and send you some T-shirts? And he was like, totally cool. We have Lucas. I'm going to get Lucas's last name wrong. Kapfler in Austria. He is the fastest RC enduro man on the planet. I don't know if anyone caught this, but that guy is a lunatic. He If you follow any of my posts, you know who he is. So he goes by Trail Psycho. Um, the name is telling. So he is an Olympic Austrian athlete. I think he does cross-country skiing, shooting, and so the guy's already fit. I think there's a certain mindset that comes with that.
Yeah.
But he is a wicked scale builder. If anyone's seen that scale rally Porsche that's like Matt Gray, that's his build. He built a number of great things using some of our parts. Is how I first got to find out about him. And then as the fixed enduro format and some of the G6 formats took off, and people were trying to see how far they could go in 12 hours, I think he was the first to break 40, although Jake Wright was super close. But this year he just broke 51 miles driving an RC car within 12 hours.
That's insane. Absolutely insane.
And you should see the rig. It's beautiful. Like it's a Proline SR5 body. It looks scale. He's tuned up, and so super happy. We help him on his scale stuff, of course. It's super cool that he's an enduro guy. I mean, that's just like, and so, and he does great photographs. He's got a great Instagram feed. So he's a cool guy. Who else we got? We got Chris Jones from Ultra, right? We help Chris. Chris helps us. Like what Ultra he's done in terms of, working with Rodney and Axial to make the Ultra 5K, and that's like I was saying, that the things of like progressing the hobby, giving people a competitive format that's still casual or as competitive as you want it. Finding like a relatively scale rig and then doing it in an environment which I think is a little unique to everything. So we love Chris for that. Help him out wherever we can. And, some of this is just, Chris needs something, help him out. Little shout to John Schultz, because, wherever John goes, people say bring the fun, #fun. John's a great guy. He's always fun. I love hanging with John. He always makes me laugh. His work in Axial was amazing. I know he's just recently joined Associate. I think a lot of people know that. I'm sure he's going to for them. If it just, I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but if people don't know, John races. So if you see what he does with the Associate race buggies, and I'm a huge fan of Associate from my days racing as a kid, and that was always the car to have. And, so it's John Schultz. We have RC Dan, another Austrian guy in Europe. Again, posts up a lot. And then we have Jay Kendall at Saw Racing. Yeah. And Jay came out of we were hanging at Axel Fest. We were both there, knew we weren't trailing together, and he's a super cool dude. And again, he's just trying to comes from a motocross background, saw an opportunity to do what he was doing for motocross and transition to RC, and has a genuine love of hobby RC. And we went crawling Axel Fest for a couple of trails, and I'm like, how do we figure working together and do stuff? So we run his wraps. He helps us with our design stuff. We help him wherever we can, and proud to call him a team driver.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things that the new people who are just like entering the hobby don't really understand, is that a lot of companies have like this close guarded team drivers, like people they've built relationships with, people who they know are there all of the time. I mean, some companies definitely open it up more than others, but there are companies that do that, like very closely guarded. There's a reason those people are there, and it's because they've built relationships over years and years of time. That's exactly. I mean, that's where the majority of anything that I've received from any kind of sponsorship has come from. Years and years of working together. So.
And I knew all of those guys for at least 2 years before I was willing to say, even ask, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important. I did forget one guy, Gary. Gary's in Hong Kong. Gary Yuan. I forgot two guys. Gary Yuan in China, Hong Kong, China. He does a great, he's the guy behind the Land Rover Defender. If you haven't seen the Camel Trophy Land Rover Defender videos, that's Gary. And I got to meet him.
So many of them. They're so good.
He's phenomenal. And then Jeremy Fish in Australia, who I knew back from Tamiya Club days, goes by Deluxe. So we help him out wherever we can. He does a great job. Always putting up awesome builds, shares how he does stuff. I think he really inspires people in how he builds. So yeah, that's it. That's the 8 guys. I've got them up now. So I'm like, Dan, Gary, Jay, Lucas, Matthew, Jeremy, John, Chris.
Yeah, so I follow the Deluxe feed on Instagram all the time. Like, big fan, can't lie.
Right.
All right, man. Well, we're nearing the end of everything we've got going on here. What should we expect to see next from you at Night Customs here?
So I hate to tease, but I think we were really excited to share what we did with Vanquish this year. I think that was a great collaboration. Vanquish were like super awesome to work with. You know, big shout out to Jim and Steve and Josh and Brandon, who I got to work with. And, you know, again, known them for a while, was super excited to be invited to help, you know, collaborate on that, the VS410. And I think without naming names, like, we love that kind of partnership and that collaboration, and there's more of that coming. So I can't say more than that, but I think you're going to see stuff this year, which I will be sure to share when I can share it. It's right here.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah. Still in development. So, you know, it's important. IP security, both my day job and this. You know, I trust people with a lot of stuff that I share with them and vice versa. But I think, you know, just to close on, I'm very fortunate to sort of be able to talk to all the great companies in Scale RC. They've always been very welcome and very thankful for that. You know, and I think that they're all genuinely looking to make great products, push the hobby forward. We're happy to sort of be part of that. And I think, you know, when I look at other industries that maybe are more mature and there's maybe less genuine businesses in those, I think we're very lucky. We're at a very great time where we've got more genuine people that are putting their personal reputation and investment to bring great products. Even the biggest companies, you know, that I work with is still, you know, the guy running it is paying the checks and has very important values and principles. So it's a great time to be in RC, and we're just happy to be able to, you know, just me and my garage with my laptop and Shapeways, happy to contribute. And I would say shout out to AMain and RPP, or our US retailers. And you know, they've been, without them we wouldn't be where we are, and they've done a lot of things to help me get there. And I always tell people, if you're going to buy a Night Customs part, where do you buy it from? You should definitely buy it from RPP or AMain. You get it in a Night Customs package, which you don't get if you buy it through Shapeways. You get great customer service. They have it in stock and they ship the same day. There's a shameless plug for you.
No, by all means, shameless plugs are fine. The whole purpose of all of this is to promote the person on, and that's you. So that's why I'm saying, like, is there anything I'm missing? Anything else that you need to shout out? Anything you need to say before I let you go, close the show, and kind of move on with the evening here?
Oh, Ryan, I'd just like to, Adam, I'd just like to, Ryan keeps posting, I go. Just like to thank you, because I think, you know, we're super honored to be asked. I think you've done some great interviews, and I love that, you know, like we said earlier, like, you're bringing what you can contribute, and it just makes the whole thing better. These regular interviews with, like, a great cast of characters, and the fact that you know, you're not just looking for the usual suspects, you're really digging and asking, like, who else should I talk to?
Yeah.
I know you get comments all the time, so I've seen everything you've done today, and I look forward to seeing the rest. So thank you for that.
Thanks, man. I genuinely appreciate it. And so, like, I'm always looking for people. And so I'm gonna thank you for saying that, but I'm also gonna, like, point this right at the people who are watching this or tuning in later. No matter how big, small, whatever you're doing, if you're doing something interesting and cool, I want to know. And if you bring it to me, it's easier than me searching it out. Like, I realized that my circle was only so big, and I'm starting to try and grow it. But it's definitely I'm reaching the outer edge, and I'm trying to bring people in, and so I am always open to suggestions. So shoot me messages. Shoot me them here at the Live at 9:45 thing. Shoot me them to my personal. Shoot me at VanOrd Customs. Wherever you find me, shoot me messages because I'm always interested in interviewing pretty much anyone. It's just fun.
Cool.
So
Well, if I think more people, I'll send them your way for sure.
awesome, man. So I'm gonna let you go if you don't have anything else. I want to thank you for being on. I when I started all this, I never would have thought that I'd been interviewing half of the people that I've interviewed. So I just clicked the bucket list off like all of them, and your name was there, so you got clicked. So it was a good talk. I'm glad to finally get to talk to you, and not just the following the Instagram, following the Facebook. So it was awesome. I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. All right. And thanks for everyone who commented and tuned in. Really appreciate it.
All right. I'm going to let you go, and I will see you in the future, man.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yep. See ya. All right, guys. Well, that's going to conclude the interview for this evening. If you didn't tune into the beginning of this, you should go back and check out the beginning of this. I offered a bunch of thank yous to some really awesome people in our hobby. I'm doing some cool stuff that you guys are going to find out more about in the very near future. And the only other thing I need to bring up is that I have Tom Asher on next week. If you don't know anything about Tom, he is doing the Three Brothers stuff. So unique new products, very, very, very powerful, very performance oriented. And Tom is a great guy, thinks way outside the box, and he has a cool story. So he's coming on next week, but after that, I don't really have anybody planned, so it's time for me to start sending some more messages. But by all means, shoot me a message if you either want to be on or know someone who should be on, and I will absolutely consider them all and do my very best to bring everybody on that I can. This is a genuine pleasure for me. I can't believe people tune in and watch it every week. I never thought it would get here, and I'm truly, truly appreciative. If you're watching over on YouTube, shoot me a message at the end of this. Ask questions, do all of that stuff. Last but not least, I gotta plug the few things I've got going on. Check out my website, VanOrdCustoms.com. Check me out on Facebook at VanOrd Customs. Check me out on Instagram at VanOrd_Customs. And over on YouTube, you can pick up any of the past interviews. I think there's something like 30 some of them now. And watch them in their entirety, just like you would have if they were live. So go on over, do that, check it out, and I appreciate you guys all for tuning in. And just like I end every week, if it wasn't for all of you out there watching, it would just be me talking to a camera, and like literally no one wants to see that. So thank you guys for being on. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for watching, commenting, all of the support. I really, really wouldn't be doing this without you guys, and I can't thank you enough. Have a good week. I will catch you all next week with Tom Asher.